What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Sports Nerds, the NFL podcast here on the 515 Podcast Network. I'm Brock Beirman alongside, as always, with Dawson Livingston. And I know Dawson's really happy about the events that happened last weekend during the conference championship, NFL Sunday, as well as I am, because, got my Super Bowl prediction from the beginning of the year correct. But, how are we feeling, Dawson? I know you're a Chiefs fan and everything went your way, but how are we feeling?
Right now I'm feeling really good. Obviously, Sunday's game, although obviously Kansas City won, it didn't go the way that I thought it would. I thought it was gonna have to be a shootout in order for Kansas City to win. But dude, that was one of the. We got two really good games. I know the Niners game didn't start off that way, but towards that fourth quarter, that Niners game got really good. I'm just happy that we got two really good games for conference championship weekend.
It was really fun to watch, and yeah, you talked about the Ravens game potentially needing to be a shootout. I did too. At the beginning of the game, it looked like it was going to be a shootout with how quickly the teams were able to score. The Chiefs scored all 17 of their points in the first half. The Ravens were held to 10 points, only scored off of that. Was it one of the first two drives that they had in the game? And
I think it was the first drive.
first drive, so even better. So the Chiefs defense, like we've talked about a lot, how great they've been this year, held them to 3 points after that touchdown drive, and credit to the Chiefs on that one. And we can get into this game since it was the first one of the championship weekend. And start out exactly how I said it was going to be a get right game for Kansas City. And that first drive of offense for the Kansas City Chiefs was exactly how I imagined it going. It looked exactly like the old Chiefs. Travis Kelce was balling out. That was one of his best performances I've seen in a while, which he's always played really well. But the effort that he made on some of those plays, not necessarily on the first drive, but just overall, had over 116 yards. It's been a while since we've been able to talk about Travis really balling out like we are used to seeing. But what were your thoughts on this Chiefs offense? I thought they played really good. Pacheco was able to run the ball, which is a great asset to this Chiefs offense because then it allows Mahomes to set up the pass game. And what were your thoughts as a Chiefs fan?
I'll touch on 2 points really quick of what I noticed and I really like going forward for this 49ers game. No turnovers. I guess I have three things then. No drops. You didn't really see hardly any drops from the receivers. And they were able to, that looked like you said, it looked like the old Chiefs. It looks like the 2018 Chiefs that were able to score in 5 plays, go 75 yards. Mahomes and Kelce might be the best playoff connection of all time. I know some will argue Brady and Gronk, but the numbers will support the Mahomes and Kelce. But dude, that gave me a lot of faith as a Chiefs fan. Not only because the defense was able to hold the Ravens with MVP Lamar Jackson to 3 points in the second half, but the fact that the offense was not turning the ball over, was moving the ball up and down the field. They had a lot of explosive plays, which we really hadn't seen towards the end of the regular season from Kansas City. But overall, I'm super pumped, and I think Kansas City. It's going to be a great game. I know the line right now is San Francisco -1, but it's going to be a great Super Bowl.
And I talked about get right game. Of course, when we talk about get right game for the Kansas City Chiefs, you probably imagine like putting up 30 plus points easily. And they only scored 17. All 17 was in the first half, but like even when they weren't scoring, they were still able to move the ball, which helped with field position. And again, like I just thought this was a really good game. I said that it was going to be a 10-ish point. I think I said for both games we're going to be a 10-ish point victory for the team that I had winning, which both of them did win. And you look at it, I think I give me half credit for this because the field goal at the end, didn't really change the game, but like it made it look a little closer. But like I really don't think that the Ravens played all that good. They were able to move the ball, but then they made stupid decisions, and that's what I wanted to talk about a lot. Is what were your thoughts on some of the decision making from the Ravens? Not necessarily just on Lamar Jackson because he did make some stinky plays, as well as Zay Flowers, ultimately probably costing them a touchdown, and not even just that. At the end of the second quarter, the defensive issues The personal fouls that were called. Travis Kelce is a smart man. He knows how he can manipulate people into pushing him, and led to a couple personal fouls. Of course, the roughing the passer call that if anybody questions whether or not that was roughing the passer, the dude literally clotheslined Mahomes' head. And so, what were your thoughts on the Ravens' decision making? Not necessarily just from play standpoint, but as well as in between plays.
I thought the Ravens started off the game like it was like you said. I thought the game was going and acted like it was going to be a 34-31 shootout, just like the NFC title game. But the Ravens abandoned the run game for reasons I still do not know. I think they only had 16 carries the entire game, and I think over half of those were with Lamar. So that doesn't go to show you that maybe they were thinking, oh, it's the Chiefs. We're going to have to get in the shootout. We're going to have to throw the ball every play. Dude, the Ravens are moving the ball, running it. I think that back-to-back weeks, Kansas City has baited their opponent into doing the opposite of what they're really, really good at. What I mean by that is Buffalo, Kansas City baited them to run the ball in the first half. And I know Buffalo had 180 yards rushing, but Kansas City was able to limit Josh Allen. And Josh Allen wasn't really a factor till the third or fourth quarter. This week, against Lamar, what is Lamar's biggest strength? Or what's the Ravens' biggest strength as a whole? Running the ball. They have the number one rushing attack in the league, I think over 160 yards a game. And Kansas City basically said, we're gonna pack the box. We're gonna have 6-7 guys in the box, and we're gonna dare Lamar to throw and see if he can beat us with his arm. He had that crazy play to Zay Flowers on the first drive of the game. But other than that, Lamar really wasn't making that many crazy throws. He had the one to Flowers that went all the way to the 10. But I think the Chiefs defense, bro, what's not being talked about is they're the best second half defense in the league. Like there's a graphic on Twitter. They've held their opponents to like 3 points, 7 points, 0 points, 0 points, 3 points, like over the last 6 or 7 weeks. I think that's what's kind of going unnoticed. Their ability to go into halftime and make defensive adjustments and say, hey, we're going to shut down Lamar Jackson, or hey, we're going to bait Lamar Jackson into throwing more times than they're comfortable with.
That play where he threw it into triple coverage, really, like, exactly like you said, they baited him into throwing that for some reason. I'm really not sure what he saw in that play. I just knew when he threw it, I was like, "Oh God, this is not going to end well for the Ravens."
Well, you could see that Likely puts his hand up, like, "Yo,
Yeah.
I'm open." It's like, dude, you have 2 people on you and a third safety coming in to guard that. Like, you got to have a little. Could that have been a better pass? Sure, could have been a better pass. Could have led them more. Maybe give Isaiah Likely a better opportunity for a jump ball. But dude, if you're Likely, you also got to know in that situation, yo, the last thing we can do in this situation is turn the ball over. We can't throw a pick, can't get a fumble, because that game was so low scoring that every possession matters when you get down to the red zone. You have to come away with points.
Yeah, and I mean, the Ravens had so many opportunities to potentially get back in this game. Of course, the huge play from Zay Flowers that got called, not necessarily called back, but like a penalty, shortened the total game that he got, and then resulted in the fumble into the end zone. That was a total football gods telling him to humble himself a little bit kind of play. And then, I mean, I feel like they were put into so many positions to actually get back in this game or even take the lead at one point. The hypothetical points that the Ravens probably could have had in this game all signs would point towards a 49ers Ravens Super Bowl right now. If things didn't go the way that they ended up going with the penalties that they ended up accumulating throughout the game. And I mean, the penalty difference, they had 8 penalties, and I think 3 or 4 of them probably could have been really prevented, maybe even more than that. And the Chiefs only had 3 penalties the whole game. So the Chiefs, again, it's one of those things where I think it's more of a we've been here before versus not having the experience in a championship event like the Chiefs have, which resulted in the ultimate downfall of the Ravens.
Yeah, I mean, this just goes to show what experience does in the playoffs. I mean, the fact that Kansas City, we all doubted him. I had my own self-doubts going into the playoffs. But the fact that they were able to win 2 straight road playoff games to go to the Super Bowl against 2 number 1 seed in the AFC, number 2 seed in the AFC, regardless of what you think. But some of the best teams in the AFC, The fact that they were able to go into their house and beat them, I think goes to show the veteran experience that Chiefs have had. I mean, we talked about them all the time, but this is their 4th Super Bowl appearance in the last 6 years. Like, that's unheard of. But what really confused me is these, like you said, the personal fouls for the Ravens. So many self-inflicted wounds. Like the one with Kyle Van Noy, where you just headbutts Travis Kelce. Like, that one's probably the most baffling one in my opinion. Like, dude, it's end of the second or end of the first half. You can't be doing stuff like that. You gifted Kansas City a field goal. Like, I know Kansas City was moving the ball pretty well, but you guys had 2 or 3 personal fouls on that drive, I believe. But you guys gifted Kansas City the freest 3 points, which ultimately could have cost them the game.
And if that field goal doesn't happen, the way that the Ravens are playing in the second half completely changes because it's a difference of 3 points. I mean, they still would need a touchdown to take the lead, but like, you're not playing for the tie, you're playing for the lead. And maybe they would have made different decisions on how they played on offense in that second half.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, when you're talking a 2-possession ball game most of the time compared to a 1-possession ball game, your thought process is a little different. I do think the Ravens were pressing in the second half and like, yo, we got to get one here. We got to score right now. But the thing is, you can't score 10 points in 1 possession. You just can't. No, there's no chance that you can. So you might as well take it 1 play at a time, 1 possession at a time. And that's where I think the experience factor leans towards Kansas City, where they're, no matter what situation they're in, they're like, hey, we've been here before. Let's calm down. We know what we're good at. Let's be able to move the ball 1 play at a time. And ultimately, I believe that's why Kansas City won.
Yeah, I think experience played a huge factor in this game. What are your thoughts on the Ravens going forward in this situation? Because the one thing that Lamar was kind of labeled as is someone that can't compete in the playoffs, and he got a win this year, but he fell short again in the Super Bowl. I don't think he was in the situation that some other teams were in, where it was like Super Bowl or bust. But like, it is kind of a disappointing season for a team that a lot of people thought was the best in the league heading into the playoffs.
I think we should be treating Lamar Jackson the same way we should be treating Josh Allen right now and Dak Prescott. Like, dude, you had your team. There was no excuses this year. And with Dak, I mean, the NFC was the weaker conference this year. I know that the Lions and 49ers, the Lions were an unproven team, not a whole lot of experience on that roster. For this Niners, we didn't really know what was going to happen in the playoffs, especially injury-wise. That team is always riddled with an injury. And for Dallas, losing at home to Green Bay, like, you can't be losing. When you're the 2 seed, you can't be losing to the 7 seed by 30 points in the fourth quarter. Josh Allen, I mean, dude, you got what you wanted. You got the Chiefs at home. Everyone complains about how they always have to go to Arrowhead and blah, 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 blah. Dude, you got the fighter's best punch. I mean, like, come on now. You got to win that game. And then for the Ravens, like, historic defense, like one of the best defenses in recent memory in the last 20 years. And the fact that they weren't able to close it out and send the Chiefs home, there are going to be some tough conversations in the offseason. Because think about it from the Ravens' perspective. Lamar last offseason was like, you know what? I want to be traded. I'm done. I don't want to be a Baltimore Raven. Demands that the Ravens pay him $50 million a year. He finally gets that contract. They go out and get OBJ. They go draft Zay Flowers. Like, it's all in this year. And the fact that they were only able to win 1 playoff game and get flat out embarrassed in the second half in their stadium, they're going to have some tough conversations moving forward.
Those fans just couldn't really get into that game. It was kind of crazy how the Chiefs, who didn't even score in the second half, were able to still control the level of the noise in a road environment. Out of those 3 teams that you mentioned, with the Ravens, the Bills, and the Cowboys, which one had a more disappointing end to the year? I get, and you'll probably end up saying Dallas because that is an embarrassing loss to Green Bay. But like you mentioned, I'm starting to think the Bills may be the ones that are in the worst situation out of all 3 of them.
I do think it's the Bills, actually. At least with Dallas, you still have guys like Parsons and CeeDee Lamb on rookie contracts. You will have to eventually pay them, but that's down the line. That's next year, maybe later this offseason. With Buffalo, that's an old roster. Like, Micah Hyde is in his early 30s. Jordan Poyer's in his 30s. Von Miller, that whole
Yeah, that's
contract,
rough. That's rough.
that whole situation is going to be rough when they have to figure that one out next year or this offseason, excuse me. The whole Stephon Diggs drama, like, is he going to get traded? The videos of him screaming at Josh Allen on the sideline of the playoffs, like, you can't be doing that to your star quarterback. That's when I think the Bills move on from Diggs. But I do think it's the Bills. And I'm not saying the Bills are like out of Super Bowl contention because I do believe at some point Josh Allen's good enough to get a Super Bowl. And I believe he will get one later in his career. Same with guys like Lamar. I do believe Lamar is a Super Bowl winning quarterback, like Super Bowl caliber quarterback, I should say. But I don't know. It's going to be some tough decisions. But with guys like that, even with Dak, I know Dak's not on the same level, in my opinion, as those two. You're going to be in the hunt for the playoffs every single year if they're healthy and you have a competent team around them. But I believe all three of those teams are going to have tough conversations, just roster construction and a lot of pointing fingers at the quarterbacks, because I believe all three of those seasons ended because of quarterback play.
I completely agree. Of course, out of all of them, I think Lamar probably had the least amount of impact on their season ending. That's just my personal opinion, just because of the personal fouls that accumulated throughout the Chiefs game. But all three of these teams should be competing for Super Bowls, and yet none of them have made one. Let alone, again, I get that. Like, I don't know. I really don't think they've ever been like good enough to be a Super Bowl championship team. They have Super Bowl caliber players. They just don't have enough to get it done completely. So it'll be interesting to see what some of these teams do. The Cowboys is that franchise. I feel like if they don't win or make it a Super Bowl next year, is going to be a dumpster fire, and we'll see how that goes. I agree that the Bills are the ones with the most questions about what they do next with the contract situations and the drama with Diggs. The Ravens, I don't really know. If I'm right, was Odell planning on retiring after this year? I swear he said something before the year
I
about
think
that.
you're right, but who knows? Maybe because they came up one game short. Maybe he's
Yeah.
like, you know what? Let me play one more year. Let me sign another 1 year, $13 million deal.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what that Ravens team looks like next year. And you mentioned that a lot of people, if not everybody, was kind of jumping off the Chiefs bandwagon. I would like to say that I was not one of them, just because I have
Hey, both of us.
yeah,
Both of
I
us.
have
I
I
know at
have
the end of the regular season, I was this close to the panic button, but I still had faith in my team.
uh legendary wrestler Ric Flair once said, "To be the man, you got to beat the man." And the Chiefs have been the man the last couple of seasons. You mentioned 4 Super Bowls in the last 6 years. So I I can't take a team against them for now. For now, though. But yeah, final thoughts on this game.
Real quick, can you imagine how frustrating it is for teams like Buffalo and Baltimore? Like, you got the worst Kansas City team in recent memory. Kansas City was on the road, like, and you just weren't able to close out. That's when you start thinking, like, dude, are we ever gonna beat this Kansas City team? Because you take out Mahomes playing Brady, because Mahomes has lost to Brady both times in the playoffs. Mahomes is 14-1 in the playoffs. His only loss is to Joe Burrow, and that game was in overtime. Like,
You're
uh,
go ahead.
what?
Go ahead. I'll let you finish your
We're,
point
we're,
first.
we're witnessing GOAT stuff right now. Is what I was getting ready to say.
So,
Not the GOAT yet, but we got a little baby GOAT. We got a little top 3 quarterbacks of all time.
and I completely agree. And you mentioned that the how these fan bases feel right now about that. You're talking to someone that's a Celtics fan, and over the last 15 years, it's been well, not in the last 5 years, but like before that, it was, can we ever beat LeBron to make the finals if we can't even beat him with one of the worst teams ever or whatever? And then he leaves, and then we finally make the finals, and we can't even beat arguably the worst Warriors team out of that Warriors dynasty. So it's like, are we gonna ever win an NBA
Yeah.
championship? So if you're wondering how that feels, just look at me come summertime when the NBA playoffs is going on, and if the Celtics end up falling out before the finals or don't win the finals this year, because that's exactly where I'm at right now. Is it's like, are we ever gonna win? Are we ever gonna get over that hump? Because it just seems like something else Of course, in the NFL standpoint, it's because they're going up, like you said, against a baby goat. And the Celtics finally got rid of the arguably one of the greatest players, not the GOAT, but arguably one of the best players of all time when he went to the Lakers, and they still can't. So I know how they feel. I know how Ravens and Bills fans feel.
There's a stat out there since 2011, the AFC title game has had either Mahomes or Brady every single year, which is just an absurd stat to think of, because the Patriots had that run where they made 7 straight AFC title games from 11 to 18. And obviously Kansas City's continuing that streak right now. It's absurd.
Isn't it like isn't him, Mahomes, Brady, Manning, Roethlisberger, and then Flacco? Aren't those like the only 5? Oh, I guess Burrow. But like, so there's 6 that have won the last 15 years?
Yeah.
If not more. I guess I don't even know where it's like.
No, I think you're right. I think it is only 6 because Chiefs, Patriots, Steelers year, the Ravens year, obviously, the
Broncos, Colts.
I mean, I think you're right. Yeah, that's absurd.
That's crazy, and that just shows you how good having a good quarterback can help. And for those, I used to be someone that said, "Well, Joe Flacco's a outlier." No, Joe Flacco had a good year. He had one of the more impressive
Super Bowl MVP, Joe Flacco.
Yeah, exactly. So we can't dog on him. But let's move over to the other title game, the NFC side, where the 49ers ended up coming back an impressive second half. Again, so this is one of the few weeks where like I have multiple things on my list that I was like I got right, and I feel happy because like I'm usually the opposite where like I get everything wrong. And I said that it's going to be close to start the game, and then something's going to happen in the second half, and Purdy and the boys are going to be able to pull out in this game. I didn't expect it to happen the way it did. I did not expect a 24-7 lead for the Lions heading into the half. But, man, an impressive win by the 49ers. 34-31 ended up being the final. I think it was a double-digit lead at one point as well in the final 2 or 3 minutes, and then a last-minute touchdown from the Lions trimmed that lead to a 3-point win for the 49ers. What were your thoughts? I will want to say real quick, Dan Campbell, man, I love him as a head coach, and I love that in his press conference he did not really do what you would call coach speak. He was straight up. He was like, I told our guys, this might have been our only chance, and that's true. Like, you can be a good team and you could have a bright future, but like this may have been his only chance to ever make it to the Super Bowl with this Lions team, and credit to him for saying that, because most people would be like, we can get back next year, blah, blah, blah. But it's so hard to get back to a championship game. And, I mean, at one point, the 49ers were struggling against the Packers. They may have not made back to the championship game. So what are your thoughts on the Lions-49ers game? I know there was some questionable play calls by the Lions side that helped the 49ers a little bit, but an impressive comeback victory for Brock Purdy and the 49ers.
I'll start really quick with the Lions, and then I'll move into the 49ers. I am 1,000% okay with the 4th downs. I know everyone is jumping on the Lions for the 4th down calls. That's how you got there. You got to stick with your season motto. And people were only playing the results. If they would have picked those 4th downs up and won the game, they would have been praised for it. But because the fact that they didn't pick them up, people are going to hate on it. In my opinion, you do what you've been doing all season, and that's going for it. The one thing that I was like, what are you doing, Dan? When they're down 10 and they're on the 1-yard line, it's 3rd and goal, and you run the ball. And not only that, you burn one of your timeouts. Once you burn that timeout, game's over, because you only have the ability to stop the clock twice, and game's over. If you, in my opinion, obviously neither of us are head coaches. Wouldn't you just throw the ball 4 times? That way, hey, you don't score there. Oh, whatever, game's over. You score a touchdown, you don't have to burn timeouts. You could force San Francisco to punt the ball back and potentially get in crazy field goal range. I know it's a lot of hypotheticals right now, but I'm not really mad at the Lions' decision whatsoever on those fourth downs. That third down is what really, like, Dan, buddy, what are we doing? I know you have one of the best goal line backs in the league in Montgomery, but dude, we got to be doing something else but running the ball with a minute left when time is your most valuable enemy right now. But
Yeah, I completely agree.
The Niners, dude, I'm sold, or I'm all in, dude. I love the Niners, bro. They proved everything wrong. I know that after that Packers game, I had questions, bro, legitimate questions about this roster. I had still legitimate questions about Purdy, and those have been answered. I'm not willing to say Purdy's top 5 or top. He's probably top 10, but I don't really have any more doubts. I keep coming up with things like you know what? I need to see what he's doing. I need to see a comeback out of it. It's like, dude, he just came back 24-7. It's like, I have no reason to doubt him anymore. Now, with that being said, am I going to pick them to win next Sunday? We'll see. I'll give you a hint. Probably not. But dude, that Niners team, something about Christian McCaffrey and the impact that he has made in San Francisco, dude. Like,
most valuable player. If there was a reason to give a running back an award for being the most valuable player, Christian McCaffrey is him.
Dude, and I was one of the people when he got traded to San Francisco. I hated the move for San Francisco. Like, I will be 1,000% on the record. I did not like that move whatsoever, because why are you trading a 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th round pick for running back? Like, what are you doing? Running backs aren't that valuable. I was on that train. Like, you can just keep drafting running backs. McCaffrey's the only exception in the league that you could do that kind of trade. What?
He's a unicorn.
He is, because he's not just a running back. He is a wide receiver. He is a fullback. He is a tight end. Like, he's a quarterback. We've seen him throw the ball. Like, it's just absurd. And coming from an Iowa fan, I've seen that man single-handedly destroy franchises and programs. Okay.
Are you worried about a repeat performance?
Dude.
Like, what if he just goes Rose Bowl 2016, 2015 all over again on the Chiefs?
Dude, you would not see me for a couple weeks in the pod, bro.
Oh god, that would be great.
He had 400 all-purpose yards, dude. I can't do that again. Can't.
No, he's so, and like, everybody credits Debo for being a receiver that can also run the ball. It's crazy that they have both versions of that. They have a running back that can be a receiver, and they have a receiver who can be a running back, which makes their offense so hard to play against. And the thing that stuck out to me the most is that they had this comeback with George Kittle only having 2 receptions. They didn't use him really at all. And I think the 2 receptions, like, only 3 targets as well. 2 receptions were like in the second half, if not only the fourth quarter. And I don't know, but at the same time, he was making huge effort plays blocking the ball. He's one of the best tight end blockers in the entire league, probably the best, which makes him such a great asset to this team when you have McCaffrey and Debo that can run the ball.
Well, like you said, McCaffrey can also catch the ball like a wide receiver. Debo can run the ball like a running back. George Kittle can block like an offensive lineman. Like, it's like having a 6th offensive lineman out there.
A Swiss Army knife of the offense.
Like, and you have Kyle Juszczyk, who's the biggest mismatch when it comes to fullback. Do you put a linebacker on him? Do you put a safety on him? Like, what do you do with that? Because you'll forget about him. You'll think, all right, we got CMC covered. We got Kittle covered, Ayuk and Debo. Like, we got the Niners all. And then you just see little Kyle Juszczyk popping out to the flat and taking 130 yards. It's like,
yep.
What do you do? What do you do? It's so frustrating to play against the Niners.
It's really tough to game plan against them. And then you get those lucky plays that they get every once in a while. That Brandon Ayuk effort catch at like the 3 or 4 yard line, that completely changed the momentum of the game. Completely. Like, if there was any momentum on the Detroit side, that was the nail in the coffin for them. And it's just crazy because they're so hard to game plan against, because they have a lot of elite players at certain positions, but then they also have some guys that people don't talk about a lot that can make some effort plays. And this offense is really good. The defense to me struggled, especially in the first half. They looked like they struggled against the run game, which, hey, Kansas City had a really good game on the ground. Pacheco could be an X factor in the Super Bowl matchup. Of course, we're not going to get deep into like previewing the Super Bowl this week, but what just given at a glance at the matchup, Pacheco could be a really big X factor on the ground for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, as much as I was hyping up their offense, I mean, like you said, their defense struggled. We know they have playmakers on that side of the ball. We know they have Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, Chase Young now, one of the better corners in the league, and Javarius Ward. They have dudes on that side of the ball that can make plays. But I'm not sold on the Niners defense, if that makes sense. I know that their offense can put up points. I've seen what Kyle Shanahan offenses can do. But I just am a little skeptical about that defense. Remember, last year's Super Bowl, the Eagles had one of the best defenses in the league, and they had 70 sacks or the NFL record for sacks in a season and stuff like that. And they weren't able to get any pressure on Mahomes in that Super Bowl. So we'll see. Nick Bosa is obviously going to be a huge factor, especially with the Chiefs kind of struggling at tackles this whole season, with Juwan Taylor not being like great this year, and Donovan Smith having his issues as well. But no, I think, like you said, I think the game can be won for Kansas City, running the ball, because Pacheco, dude, someone said it best. He runs like a toddler that stole something that his parents just don't want him to have.
He's got the Kyler Murray gene.
Dude, he does, bro. It's so funny to watch, and I think he could potentially have a huge game on the ground. I know the Niners still have some good defensive linemen, but we saw what the Lions were able to do. I mean, they had that explosive 40-yard run play with Jameson Williams early in the game on the end around. They were able to run the ball with Montgomery and Gibbs. We'll see. Kansas City probably will only have Pacheco, maybe some CEH touches. I don't think McKinnon's playing this game, but yeah. I know we'll preview the Super Bowl more probably in next week's episode, but dude, I believe we got the best matchup, and I know we both picked this. I picked at start of the playoffs. You picked at start of the season, so props to you.
Again, it's just one of those things. And I mean, you had the Chiefs making the Super Bowl, but like a lot of people didn't, and it's to be the man, you got to beat the man, and I'm glad that we have this matchup. And anybody that says it wasn't the best matchup possible, I think is crazy, because I think the 49ers is pound for pound the best roster put together in the league. And then you have arguably a top 3 quarterback all time already. So, and I think he is top 3 all time. Full disclosure.
Yeah. Well, think about like if we would have gotten a Detroit Baltimore Super Bowl. Both of those teams have glaring weaknesses. Baltimore's inability to throw the ball down the field, and Detroit's inability to play defense. Like, they had some good moments against San Francisco. Obviously, that first half they had great. They played way better than I thought they would.
I was so confused.
Hutchinson was a huge factor. But both of those teams have clear weaknesses. I don't really think that either one of these teams in the Super Bowl have glaring weaknesses. Kansas City, I know you could say wide receivers, and that's a fair argument. And with the Niners, I think you could probably say they're secondary,
which fits perfectly for each other. It's which one's
exactly
going to step up. I mean,
who's going to make the big impact? Is it going to be like the end of the Ravens game where MVS is catching the game-sealing ball, or is it going to be back in November where MVS drops the game-winning ball against the Eagles? We'll see. If we get those kind of receivers that happened last week in the Super Bowl, I think Kansas City wins. But if we get the receivers that have in the regular season that were just constantly dropping the ball, then it's going to be a long day for Kansas City.
So when we do our Super Bowl preview show, hopefully I made a couple purchases for a jersey, so I'm not the only one that doesn't have a jersey. We'll see which one shows up first. And if the one I think that's going to show up before all the others by the time we do the show shows up, it's going to be hilarious, because I think some people are going to be questioning what fan base I actually am a part of. Not necessarily the NFL-wise, but more collegiately. If that doesn't give you an idea of which jerseys I ordered, because I ordered multiple 49ers jerseys, I'm not going to lie. because I'm all in on a couple players. But no, it's going to be a great Super Bowl. I can't wait for it. But of course, in between conference championship week and the Super Bowl, we have the greatest all-star weekend event in all of sports, the NFL Pro Bowl. Okay, hear me out. So I've been on the record for saying the Pro Bowl is one of the worst things ever. Okay, I don't mind what they did last night. The problem I have with what they did last night was when they did it. Thursday night should not be when they do all this stuff. I feel like I don't know. I don't like the whole idea of saving these some of these are actually like really entertaining to watch for a Thursday night when they can just do it all Sunday. Cuz I don't think there's any like anybody that's really competing with them TV wise on Sunday.
Dude, I'm gonna be so honest. I didn't even know the Pro Bowl events were last night.
I didn't either.
I was just not in tune with the Pro Bowl. Ever since they went away from doing the game, I just even lost interest in that. And the
Can
game
you,
even wasn't that entertaining to
I
begin
was going
with.
to say, can you agree that the game had to go away though?
It did because, and I think we're getting to that point with the NBA All-Star game, if we're being quite honest. I think you asking football's a different story, obviously, but asking these guys to play a pickup game of football when for 20 weeks straight they've already been hitting guys and they're banged up and they're injured. That's just not smart. Players don't really try. They don't really attract. The reason the fans are there, in my opinion, is for the dodgeball and stuff like that.
Yep.
Seeing the players getting autographs, getting pictures and stuff like that. They're not there to necessarily watch the game. It's not like you're going to watch the greatest football game ever. You're going to
Yep.
watch a bunch of guys that are just playing pickup football.
It was a waste of time from the beginning, the whole idea of that Pro Bowl actual football game, and I think they're doing flag football. I don't know how they're going to be able to make that fun or entertaining to really watch. And like you said, it's more about the other stuff that happened last night that the fans want to do. Another problem I have with it is that this was in Orlando. Why don't they have the Pro Bowl in the same location as where the Super Bowl is? Because you could like ticket wise and vacation wise for people who have the money, because the Super Bowl, good Lord, that will never happen in my life. I will
We're never
never go.
going to the Super
Yeah,
Bowl at
we're
these
never going
prices.
to the Super Bowl.
$10,000 a ticket? Hell no.
But there's people that can afford the Super Bowl, and there's people that could probably afford to do that and the Pro Bowl back to back weeks. And this year the Super Bowl's in Vegas. Vegas is a perfect place for the Pro Bowl. And you could do
I
like
think that's
this
where
whole,
they had it last year.
yeah, but like it just doesn't make sense to me why they didn't have it this year there. Like it should, I feel like the Pro Bowl should be exactly where the Super Bowl is, and you could lead up this whole thing and do like a meet, like they probably do meet and greets, maybe, I don't know, but like do like this whole like fan interaction with the players where it's more than just them watching these events, having autograph signings, having different events where maybe there's even players that want to host charity like golf outings or something like that. You could do a whole 2 week thing with this Pro Bowl that isn't necessarily all on TV, but yet it gets the league good publicity and maybe potentially good ticket sales, good merch sales, whatever is needed, because like you could charge people for autographs. Every place does it already anyways, so you might as well just hop on the wagon and just have all the players sit for I don't know how many hours in one day, or like a couple hours each day for a week, and people can come get autographs. I This needs to be more of a fan interactive event, because like again, the it's just, you could see from some of the highlights, some of the players just didn't care. They're like, okay, I'm here, whatever. I get at least something added to my resume. And I don't know. I just, more fan interaction and putting it where the Super Bowl is would make it so much easier for the NFL to, I feel like, gain publicity or gain popularity in this event. At the same time, either get rid of flag football or find a way to make the flag football game fun. I'm not even going to watch it on Sunday. I'm not going to lie. But the events that they did on Thursday, I would have watched if they were on a Sunday afternoon. But for some reason, they did it Thursday night.
My issue with the Pro Bowl is it doesn't really mean anything to go to the Pro Bowl. Like, yeah, you're good, but like the last 2 years, especially, we've had some odd Pro Bowl people that have like made Gardner Minshew this year. Like,
I was just going to mention him.
Josh Allen doesn't deserve to go to the Pro Bowl. As much as I'm a Bills hater, quote unquote. Josh Allen's one of the 3 best quarterbacks in the AFC. Like, come on now. And then the guys, you automatically, when you get voted to the Pro Bowl and get selected, you lose everyone that's going to the Super Bowl. So you could just, they're not playing in the Pro Bowl whatsoever. So you cross their names out. If the people played in conference title weekend, they're probably not going to go if they're one of the better players in the league. So I don't think Lamar's going to the Pro Bowl. I mean, I could be wrong. I didn't watch the event last
I
night,
don't think he is.
but it almost becomes more of a hassle for players to go more than like, yo, I want to go. This sounds like a lot of fun. And I can go to, instead of being Orlando, like you said, Vegas. Like if I'm an NFL player, I'd much rather go to Vegas. That would entice me more to go than Orlando.
It was in, I think, the football game or whatever, the flag football. I could be wrong, but I think it's in Camping World Stadium, which is where the Iowa Hawkeyes played their bowl game. So like, it's just like the location doesn't make sense to me because like it's not even an NFL caliber stadium, and I don't know. I don't like how the Pro Bowl is set up. Would you be against if they just got rid of it in general? The whole thing. I'm talking the whole 9 yards. There's nothing. So like this weekend, there just would be nothing but hype for the Super Bowl the next 2 weeks.
I wouldn't be opposed to get rid of it, but here's the issue: the NFL would never do that
Because they would get money.
because it generates money. Here's what I've been saying for the last 4 or 5 years. I say this week we take the 2 worst teams and make them play each other. Winner gets number 1 pick.
I'm all in on that.
Like, could you imagine the freaking Panthers playing the Commanders? Winner gets. So you have to win in
Would it
order
be
to get the
Panthers
number 1 pick.
Oh, well, how would you do that though? Because the Bears have the first pick.
Maybe you have Bears and Commanders or something along those
Or
lines.
imagine if the Panthers, because like it's technically their pick. If the Panthers had to play the Commanders, but like they have nothing to play for, but
Yeah.
the
Okay,
Bears.
I get it. But you could entice the players. You say,
Yes,
hey,
I
you
get that.
win, you each get $500,000 wired to your bank account. Like it's a bonus or something. Now, for guys like Brian Burns on the Panthers, it's not $500,000 doesn't really mean a whole lot. But to guys like that are on the practice squad or the backup quarterback or 5th string wide receiver, that could entice. That's the same thing I've been saying for the NBA. Could you imagine if we have a tournament for the number 1 pick? Like, have it mean something? Because I'm going to be honest, I really don't care for the NBA having ping pong balls determine the lottery. I've never been a fan of that, quite frankly. Could you imagine if you could entice teams to not completely bottom out and say, hey, you have to keep somewhat of a competent team in order to compete for this number 1 pick. And then you entice the players on the current team with just bonuses. I mean, would
Mhm.
teams not pay for that? Especially, I'm going to switch sports really quick with basketball last year. Guy like Victor Wembanyama. Would teams not keep like a relatively decent team in order to compete for the number 1 pick?
But
I
would that
mean,
make people tank to miss the playoffs to do it?
if you're that on that potential fringe playing team, potentially, but
Yeah, that I get like I'm someone that would love to see that too. I feel like there's a lot of like potential gray areas that would be broke. Like if you're at the 8 seed and you know you can drop down to the 10 or 11 in a week and you're like, we're not competing for a championship. We might as well just sit all of our players or
what the
something like
Mavs
that.
did last year.
Yeah.
The
So
Mavs were
that's
this 7 or no, they were like the 9 seed last year, the 10 seed, and they just lost their last 5 or 6 games and didn't play Luka or Kyrie in order to get a better draft pick. But that's
yeah.
because they didn't want their pick going to New York, I think.
Yeah. And it's just it'll be interesting to see if that ever happens. I'm all in on like a game determining the first pick, especially in the NFL. I think that'd be fun. Instead of the Pro Bowl. But um, I'm not gonna watch the Pro Bowl or anything
No.
Pro Bowl related on Sunday. It's gonna basically be a weekend free of NFL football for me. All probably filled with college basketball instead. There's always decent games of college basketball on Sundays. Of course, I bet you the Iowa women are playing on Sunday against someone.
I actually don't know if they are.
And I know like Clark's like what 40 points away from breaking the all-time record in women's college basketball for points.
120, I think. 120 points.
120.
She's 3 games away.
That's
Or
one
something
game
like
for
that.
her. She can
Yeah.
get that in one game.
They
That would
play
be
Saturday,
hilarious.
but
Oh, Saturday? Who do they play?
Maryland.
Ooh, okay. What was I going to say? Oh, that would be one way to break the record. Is like go 130.
Yeah.
in one game. That would be hilarious. But yeah, Pro Bowl. As a recap, Pro Bowl. We're against Pro Bowl, and
yeah.
I'm not sure. We'll probably do an NBA episode too about like if the NBA can fix their All-Star weekend or whatever. Yeah. But I think that's it for now. We'll probably sign off. Not necessarily a long episode today. We'll probably have a same length or a longer deep dive into the 49ers and Chiefs Super Bowl. And it'll be interesting to hear non-biased takes on how this game is going to go, because we both kind of have a dog in the fight.
Bias?
Oh, yeah.
What's hold on. What's that? What?
No, there's no bias. There's no such thing as bias in sports. But we'll be back next week for sure for the NFL. We might have a hardwood combos episode as well. We may do 2 depending, because next week's the draft, the trade deadline, right?
Yeah, and there will be potentially a lot of movement. Not necessarily star names, but a lot of like decent players like DeJounte Murray, Bruce Brown, guys like that.
So stay tuned for an official schedule for next week, because we will probably do maybe a trade deadline special or something like that. I know Max and I will be back on the 515 Sports Pod next week. I think I might try to convince him to do like a more of the entertainment side of the Super Bowl, previewing the great Super Bowl halftime show with Usher, who hasn't been relevant in the last 10 years.
It is Usher this year.
Oh yeah, it's not. Oh, you thought it was Taylor Swift? Oh no,
no, I just did.
No.
Dude, I'm gonna be honest. I have no idea who the halftime show is until the game. Like until it's like, oh my god, you hear that so and so is performing at halftime? It's like, no, I didn't. Thanks for telling me. Thanks for the heads up.
Well, you usually have a reason to not worry about the halftime show. Some of us,
dude, you have no idea. I'd be stressing at halftime, bro. I don't watch that. Nah. The only halftime show I've ever watched, well, recently, I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, was the Rams.
Yes, because you didn't have a dog in the fight.
No, because that was the Snoop Dogg, Dre, and
that
Kendrick
was an amazing
halftime. That was a crazy halftime show.
Oh, that was one of my favorites. But like, yeah, some people are in October or September and they're like, what do I have to look forward to in the Super Bowl? Let's see who's performing at halftime, because we're not making the Super Bowl, so I don't have to worry about sweating that game out. Oh, Usher's performing. That's great. I haven't heard any of his songs in the last 10 years, so we'll see how that goes. But I mean, hey, I guess the person they had last year, Rihanna, hadn't really released any new music either. But like,
and that was the good. I will admit that was a good halftime show last year. I enjoyed it.
The last couple haven't been terrible. I didn't. Okay, the Weeknd's wasn't the greatest, because
that one wasn't that good.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because COVID.
That was
and they probably expected him to do way too much stuff.
I didn't really care for the Rams Patriots one. I'm trying to remember who that was. That was like
what year was that?
2019, I want to say. I know that because I only remember that Super Bowl halftime show because they played "Sweet Victory" with the SpongeBob theme song for the walkout.
Oh, Maroon 5.
Yeah, I didn't really care for that one.
They really like swerved everybody. They're like, "Oh, we're gonna do it." Nah, Travis Scott.
Yeah.
That's
the one of the worst ones that happened in the last 5 or 6 years.
And I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to try to convince Max. We're going to do a list of like our top 5 and top worst Super Bowl halftime shows that we have watched over the years. But I will say the Nickelodeon broadcast, I think they announced that they're performing "Sweet Victory" before the game in the Super Bowl. So
I'm only watching it on then.
Yeah, I might have to watch it. Well, again, I don't have a dog in the fight, so I may. Well, I mean, like I want the 49ers to win, obviously, as a Purdy fan, but like I might watch the Nickelodeon broadcast because I have nothing else to do.
Here's what I want to know: Like, is the Nickelodeon broadcast like successful? Like, I want to know how many viewers they end up getting from the Super Bowl, because I do think that this Super Bowl is going to be an all-time viewership.
Yep.
Not only because it's
Again,
the Chiefs and Niners, but
if it
because
was
there's
Ravens and
going to be
Lions,
someone in the stands potentially that a lot of people like.
Of course, you had to bring that up.
Yeah, well, hey, that's why it's going to be probably the most watched Super Bowl ever. Like, I know the record was last year's at like 114 mil or 117. I bet this Super Bowl gets 130. That's my prediction for viewership.
Good God. All right. Yeah. We'll see how that goes. We'll preview the Super Bowl next week, as well as have a couple other episodes with our other podcasts here on the 515 Podcast Network. But for right now, for Dawson Livingston, I'm Brock Beirman. We are the Sports Nerds, and we'll see you next week.